All right, now to a fascinating story about a first lady and the relationship she had while married with another woman who was working in her husband's administration.
The premise is real, and it's the subject of a book by Connecticut-based author Amy Bloom. Today in Better Books, we are talking about White Houses, the first historical fiction from Ms. Bloom, who we are happy to say is joining us here in Studio B. It is so exciting to have you. I am so excited about the premise of this book because
very intriguing.
I heard the rumors. You know, we've been hearing the rumors through the years, and now it's actually...
Yeah, you can't beat history for better fiction.
Exactly, right? What's better than that? I feel like I'm eavesdropping on a conversation that I shouldn't be listening to.
I'm glad.
That's exactly, like, oh my God, this shouldn't be told, or... You know, we're supposed to protect... I'm a gay man myself, and I'm like, I just feel like, you know, this is taboo. Like, we shouldn't be talking about this kind of stuff.
That's so interesting. I didn't think of it as taboo. I did think of it as something that had been just torn out of history. And they did literally, in the White House, because it's pre-Photoshop, they used to snip out Lorena Hickok's photos because there was no way of explaining why this woman was always there and always next to Eleanor Roosevelt.
So for those who are in the audience are going, huh, what's happening? I've never heard of this woman, Lorena Hicks. This is the idea that Eleanor Roosevelt lived, her outlet was this woman who she was in a relationship with, a sexual relationship with.
Yeah, Lorena Hickok was the love of her life. And when I first started reading history books and sort of very mainstream biographies about Franklin and about Eleanor, because they were a great president and a great first lady and sort of had an enormous impact on American history, all of a sudden there's a reference in a wonderful biography by Blanche Wiesen Cook of Eleanor Roosevelt, and it says, and of course there are the 3,000 letters between Eleanor Roosevelt and Lorena Hickok, revealing that they had a romantic relationship. And it was really funny because at that time when that book came out more than 10 years ago, the historian was just excoriated in the mainstream press. How could you say such a thing about this wonderful first lady? This is an alleged affair. You've misunderstood. She was just a Victorian lady given to effusive expressions. And then you go to Hyde Park and you read the letters, and they are...
So you read the letters?
I did read the letters. My darling, I long to kiss the southeast corner of your lips and lie beside you all night long. And I thought... I'm sorry, we're calling this an alleged affair? You know, alleged in what sense? Alleged in the sense of absolutely true?
Absolutely true.
Yes, it was an alleged affair. Absolutely true.
How do you come up with you weren't obviously there for the conversations.
I was not. I'm not that old.
But no, I mean, obviously. But how do you come up with filling in the fictional part?
Well, that's the joy of being a novelist and why I'm not a historian. My folks were both journalists. I'm not a journalist. And fiction gets to take place in all those spaces where you don't know what happened. No one was in the bedroom. No one's ever in the kitchen. No one's ever standing there when you button your dress or fix your tie. And that's where fiction gets to live.
So this book is called White Houses, and as we read it, are we going to, do you let us know what part is true? Because some of the history is accurate, right? It's just the stories that you weave?
Well, there are sort of two ways you can approach a historical novel. One is to say, I'm a novelist. I can do anything I want. I can create an Earth that has 7 suns. I can eliminate gravity. I mean, it's a novel. But the other way to do a historical novel is say, let me take the facts. Let me take the historical outline of things that are not subject to interpretation. So-and-so left the White House at 9:45 that morning. The train ran this way. This is the details of Franklin Roosevelt's death in 1945. And let me work with all of those facts and sort of live in the spaces in between. You know, they used to say to Willie Sutton, you know, why do you rob banks? He said, that's where the money is. It's the same thing with fiction. Why do you go to these spaces? It's because that's where the fiction is.
Okay.
And so there are the facts of their letters. There's the fact that Lorena Hickok's bedroom adjoined Eleanor's. They didn't share a bedroom, Eleanor and Franklin. And Eleanor turned her dressing room, which was quite a large room, into a bedroom. Before Lorena Hickok. And
so she really did move in the White House.
She really did live in the White House, and there's not like a lot of, oh, did that really happen? There are the photographs. There is the room.
Right.
There is her typewriter.
We know you have an event that we want to get to, but I have one last question. With the staff in the White House at that time, were they on pins and needles? Did they know what was going on, or...
You don't get the impression that they were on pins and needles. These are people who are professionals. They have seen a lot of things come and go. I also should point out that Franklin Roosevelt's mistress, who was his secretary, also lived in the White House.
Oh, my God. This is like Three's Company.
It was a little like Three's Company, and a little bit like You Can't Take It With You, and a little bit like a large Washington, D.C. boarding house.
Wow.
You know, the Roosevelts had 5 children who had between them, no judgment, 19 marriages. And so there was a lot of coming and going in the White House between, like, the divorce lawyers and the children and people's suitcases. And it was a big, not fancy place. One of the things that was so striking when I was looking at the photographs is there was no wish to make this Versailles. The curtains were a little rough, the carpets were a little torn, and...
they lived the way they lived.
Well, it's a fascinating book, and we want to remind everybody you can find Amy Bloom's newest book, White Houses, at your local bookstore and at your favorite online bookseller.
And you're going to be in East Hampton.